Hello, and welcome back to another awesome Lumen Podcast. Today, we are honored to welcome Patrick Ellis, Saké Samurai, and founder of Blue Note Sake, Canada's leading importer of premium Japanese sake. What started with a single bottle and a dream has become a 30-year mission to bring Japan's national drink to Canadian tables. Patrick has lived in Japan twice, crossed the Pacific over 100 times, and he has built lifelong relationships with artisanal brewers. In 2018, he was named Saké Samurai by the Japan Sake Brewers Association, one of the highest honors and one rarely given to non Japanese. We're going to talk more about that. With nearly 3 million bottles brought into Canada and countless events and educational efforts, Patrick has truly reshaped how Canadians see sake. Today, we'll explore his journey, his passion, and the lessons he's learned as an entrepreneur and a cultural ambassador. Welcome, my dear Patrick. So good to see you, my friend.
So good to be here and so good to see you.
How have you been? We met, 2013? I think it was a while ago, huh?
Yeah, we were in our late teens and we were just discovering life. It was 2013.
That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about how you grew up. What was your life like growing up as a child?
Mm. Just a heads up, I am Irish, so I'm not sure how many days we have for conversations, but I break my life down into let's say if we go into decade segments. I look back and I think probably the first 10 years of my life were the best years of my life. I was born in Ottawa. 6 months I moved to the Yukon. 2 years later, moved to northern BC, British Columbia, not too far from the southern part of Alaska. And I lived in a very small mining town. So it was very isolated. And as a 5-year-old, it was a perfect place to be. Literally amongst the bears. We had a private ski hill. Everything was private because it was company owned. So that was awesome. And then we moved to Ontario. So that was the first 10 years. And then I think back and think, actually, from the time I was 10 to 20 was pretty awesome. So I partway through high school, had an awesome time in growing up. We had a small hobby farm with a couple of horses, some chickens, a few bunnies. Played hockey, played basketball, and just had a great crew of friends. And it was really sweet being in the small town environment. And then my last year of high school, we moved to the West Coast, to Victoria.
Nice.
And then after that, university. And and then I was thinking, actually, you know what? From age 20 to 30, that was probably the best time of my life. This is, when I'm going out to clubs, university, had an awesome job during university in a French service restaurant. And and that is when I started to dive deep into my Japanese studies.
So from that work that you started in the restaurant is where you got contact in being able to serve a table, to offer them something to drink, to get the start of what your entrepreneurial career would be.
Indeed, the working in restaurants, particularly in those days, the old school days, it was the French service meant that you spent a lot of time at the table. So a lot of people engagement, walking people through stories, as you're performing literally at the table. To make a Caesar salad from scratch is something that probably takes 10 minutes. And when you're banging 10 of those out a night, it's an awesome chance to get very intimate with this couple or this group in front of you. So it was a great, tremendous training ground.
Do you know where the Caesar salad was invented?
It was invented in Tijuana in 19th. Yeah, sorry. Did I steal that?
Caesars. No, that's great, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently, I think he was American, showed up and asked for some kind of unique salad, something like that. And the chef scrambled around in the kitchen and really just threw together a bunch of stuff that he had lying around. And voila.
the relevance of pressing, right? Like not staying with the first answer. It's like with ChatGPT, they tell you to keep pressing. Like, is that the best you can give me? Voila, the Caesar salad was invented. Thank you, hungry American. Wow. And you started your entrepreneurial business. You started with wine, right? You fell in love with wine first. I remember actually Blue Note wines.
Actually, well, as an entrepreneur, my first gig was when I was 7 years old, and I just naturally tended to lean into doing things, just finding solutions on my own throughout my path. At the same time, working for such as the restaurants. It was in the Fairmont Hotel Group, and so kind of straddled the two courses. And then after university, I started working in Suzuki Motor Company as a buyer. So I got a great taste, great insight into not only Japanese culture, but also just corporate. It was a joint venture with General Motors, a plant based in Canada.
Wow.
However, it was I was in the purchasing group as a buyer, and my entire surroundings were Japanese only. I had to work to speak English during the day. So in the middle of the cornfields in small town Ontario, I was waking up and putting on the company uniform and having meetings in Japanese throughout the day. It was very immersive and tremendous learning.
This was the
But
first
it
time
was
that it was the first time that you had contact with the Japanese culture.
No, it was actually the first time that I had it was in university. The in any sort of significant way. It was during university, and I was awarded a scholarship exchange to study in Tokyo at a university for a year. And
Wow.
it was and so yeah, I went from zero. Actually, I studied Japanese at the in Victoria at the university. It was part of my major. I studied it for 2 years. So by the time I arrived in Japan, I was pretty much owning mastering the language until I hit immigration at the airport and realized I know nothing. I was trying to show off with, saying konnichiwa or something like that, and I was downhill from there. So, so what I did was it was a very defined 1 year period. And even at that time, would have been a very, expensive. It was a very rich scholarship where they covered everything. So I was ever grateful, and because of that, every night that I came home from, and it didn't matter if it was 2 in the morning or 10 at night, and didn't matter how much I had to drink, I put a calendar above my door with a magic marker. And every day when I came in or stumbled in, I would grab the marker and I would cross out the day and ask myself, did I absolutely grab everything that I could out of that day? Did I live it to the most? Did I waste my time talking English, or did I really put in an effort? And that was a really great, a really great guidance for me, a great compass, because I could see the end. From the start, I could see the end. I think if you just go to a country and, yeah, I'm going to play it by ear, as maybe if you're traveling or what have you, as a kid, you don't see that end. You're maybe a little bit looser, a little bit more open-ended. But for me, no, this is as long as I'm going to last here. So every day was important.
Wow. That's amazing. And where did you get that curiosity about Japan? Like, where did it start?
Hmm. I've been able to trace it back to when I was a kid. I fell in love with a band out of England called Queen, and they released an album that had Bohemian Rhapsody and others on it. And like my entire generation, fell in love with the album. But for me, I've always had an extreme passion for music, and so I probably took it a little bit deeper and perhaps a little bit more fanatical. And the next album that came out was called A Day at the Races. The minute it showed up in the record store, I grabbed my allowance and I went down and bought the record. And it had some songs on it that were already, getting onto the airwaves, Somebody to Love and Tie Your Mother Down. But I played the album, and right at the end of one side, I stopped, and I recall that moment. And I said, I have to listen to this again. And I just kept playing this song over and over and over again. And it was Freddie Mercury doing a song called Let Us Cling Together, and in Japanese, Te o Toriate. And what that song, halfway through the song, he started singing in Japanese. And I was absolutely hooked. And it wasn't necessarily Japan itself, but it was because of who introduced me to it. And I was a huge Freddie fan, huge Queen fan. And so with that very rich golden introduction, I think that it was a given that I would be falling in love with this entity. As it turns out, that song was actually an ode to the Japanese. It was the song itself is about Queen, notably Freddie, recognizing that they were now in a rocket ship, especially riding on the tails of Bohemian Rhapsody. They were taking on the world. And of course, that song itself, Bohemian Rhapsody, became the song of the century, according to BBC. And we're all familiar with that song. But he recognized that, said, as we go into this new album and as we are going into this next level, we mustn't forget about those that were with us before anybody was with us. And that is our Japanese fans. So it's actually an ode to the Japanese, as saying, regardless, when you listen to it, it almost sounds like a funeral farewell, kind of. It's very melodic, ballady. And almost like some goodbye sense to it, but it's actually the opposite. It's despite where we go from here, Japan, you will always be with us, and so let us cling together.
Nice. That's amazing. And I do remember your passion is music, and you love going to concerts.
Oh, I love concerts. Yeah, festivals.
When did you realize that you have such a strong passion for music?
I think it was pretty much shouting at me. I was like in grade 5, and I would be hanging out with my friends over lunch at school, and they would mention about a particular song, and I would go, oh yeah, that one. No, actually, that one is actually declining on the charts. It's been on the charts for 14 weeks. It was at number 3, but now it's gone down to number 13. And they're looking at me like, dude, like, where are you from? And I'm going, and I thought, doesn't everybody cut out the music charts every week out of the paper and post them in their scrapbook? Like, what? So everybody by it, honestly.
Were you a DJ at any point of your life, a radio DJ or anything like that?
I was actually a couple of times. I was a live DJ, but in the set, like at years ago, in like roller skating rinks and things like that.
Oh, nice.
Where you're just really backing up. There wasn't a lot of complexity to it. Just played what I liked. And what was reading the crowd. But then also when I came back from Japan after my 1 year of studies over there, I had 1 year left at university. And so I started a Japanese radio program called Konnichiwa. And it was every Saturday.
That's awesome. It was over there?
No, it was in Victoria. But it was a Japanese, so I would talk about local Japanese community news. I would talk about upcoming events, and I would play music, which I fell in love with, again, being loving Japanese music, or loving music. I naturally, the first day I was in Japan, I went to a record store to just see what the scene was like, because we had no exposure to it in Canada. So I brought back some music, and I played it on air. And I recall I was about 6 months into the show, and I was at a pub, and I could hear these 2 girls, they were Japanese, behind me just chatting, and younger ladies, and they were saying, yeah, so life in Canada is fun, and how are you enjoying this? And do you ever listen to that Japanese radio program on Saturday morning? And the other one says, yeah, but it's kind of weird because he keeps playing the same record like once every 3 shows. It's like he only has 4 albums, and yeah, I only had 4 albums, so I was bleating this out as far as I could.
Very well done, my friend. I used to have one of my first businesses was being a DJ and putting music for parties as well. It was back in the day when you used to play it in long play. Um, so you had to go around with this lots of records and everything. Be mindful of the speed that you were putting it in, because if it was a smaller record, you would hear like chipmunks singing. But it was
Oh, right. Yeah.
yeah. It was a great, great experience, man. I mean, I love music. Um, yeah, then my dad thought it was not a good idea to keep at it because I would be late in the parties and whatnot. So I started a hot dog stand, one of the entrepreneurial startups. But tell me a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey. How would you define it? How has it been since that 7-year-old started uh,
Hmm.
to understand business?
Right. I certainly didn't understand. I just saw an opportunity when I was 7 years old. I was, we had just moved to a new town. This is in Ontario. I was riding my bike around and I would see there was a lot of construction going on at that time, a new subdivision going up. And I would just bike by these guys building these homes. And then this canteen truck would show up at lunch. And okay, a canteen truck, that's kind of an interesting thing. Guys would go up, buy their hamburgers or whatever. But they would also, at different times of the day, they would be sitting around at like 10 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon having coffee breaks. And I looked and go, there's no canteen truck here. So I went home and asked my parents for some money. And I went up to the convenience store with my wagon and I bought just a bunch of chips and pop and what have you, charged double, went down. I think the construction guys at their coffee breaks. So basically, I brought the store to them for their breaks. Probably out of pity, they just threw me some money and went home, paid off the loan, and continued to do that until my school started in the fall.
You were a natural with pricing and everything, just charge double. Very good. Wow, old soul.
Well, I soon realized that I needed a CFO, and so no, the I was it was something that never really it was just something you do.
Always in the servicing industry, right?
There you go, exactly. Yeah. Uh, and then, um, and then just continue to, it seems like I always had a job since I was about 8 years old. Well, it's 7 years old, that mobile convenience store. But from then I just always worked and I always liked working. And sometimes it was for other people. Sometimes it was just pick up gigs that I would do myself. Um, and then when I was in university, amongst while I was doing the restaurant work, I also was invited to join a professional improv group, and and that was tremendous experience. I had no idea the the amount of practice that went into improv. And we met a couple of times a week, and they were hard practices. And you think, well, it's improv. You're supposed to make it up on the fly. Yeah, you are, and you do. However, it's really hard to pass the ball to your teammates or receive the ball if you don't know exactly where they are and where they're going. And so that's what the practicing was about. We just really, really, as a group, would define and anticipate, as in the hockey world, we say where the puck is going, not where it's at. And but with the restaurant work being the big cash cow for me, which I needed during university, it was our nightly gigs often clashed. So I stepped away from that and suggested, "Why don't I be your agent?" And so I became the agent manager. So went out and bought a briefcase and went to all sorts of CD clubs and theaters and what have you to promote them. So that's where the promotion, the active promoter part kicked in.
Wow. Yes, and great takeaway that I learned from you about improv.
Exactly. It's amazing, and when you engage with your employees, when you engage with your suppliers and your customers, it is an awesome way to keep the ball moving forward down the field. Even if what they say, that yes doesn't mean necessarily, yes, I'm going to do that. It's more like a bridge that you can then curl into if you actually want to get to know, or politely refusing if it's a customer or what have. It's an awesome positive bridge that's a segue into what you're going to talk about. And of course, conversely,
Agree more. Yeah. I've and it's kind of like one of the big things that they teach you probably on day one in improv, right? About saying yes and, like, not saying no to your partner, but keeping the ball or the puck moving. And I've even seen it at some boards where if someone says no, like the whole conversation falls to the ground. But if someone says yes, and we could also think about this, then you're taking them with you to the point you're trying to make. So it's a great hack for sure. What was your greatest moment of improv during the time that you were working in that industry?
I'm going to filter that one out. The it was a controlled, because it was a drinking environment, and it was a Friday loud night. We knew who the audience was. And when you're getting suggestions from the audience, it doesn't take long after a couple of beers for people to start throwing out suggestions. So I'll avoid that one. I think probably the greatest moment was getting a gig with a well-known, at that time, well-known celebrity who joined, who was really curious. She was just up from LA. I think she was, I can't recall what the purpose was she was there, but we connected, and she joined us for a week-long gig at the local large theater house, and that was terrific. And her actual name escapes me, but her role was, there was a show in the 70s and 80s called Little House on the Prairie. And she was the snotty girl that was in the grocery store. Nellie, I think it was Nellie was her name. Anyways, as a person, of course, that was just her character. She was an awesome person. But working, I mean, if anything, it was a validation for the entire group, and it was very warm memories from that.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
After that, what was your next business?
The next business was actually something that never came to pass. I was in Japan. I was teaching Japanese, teaching. Yeah, I taught Japanese to the Japanese. I was teaching English, just near the tail end. My goal was to learn as much Japanese as possible, but I was going to be doing some traveling afterwards, and I needed some cash, and so I decided to pick up a teaching English gig, just a couple hours a week, and you would go into companies, and I thought it'd be an interesting way to get to know just some businessmen and what have you, and scratch the surface on what business culture was like in Japan. So I would go into these school, or into the companies, and run my class for a couple of hours. We would go out for beers afterwards, and have some fun. But quite often during the class, these guys would come in scurried halfway into the class, and they'd go, "Sorry, just coming back from Osaka, train. By the time I got onto the train and got here, sorry, I'm an hour late." And this happened on a regular basis from different people. And so it occurred to me, wait a sec, if these guys are constantly traveling on the train, like between Tokyo and Osaka, it's a good handful of hours, like 2 hours, 3 hours. So this is part of their life. They go down in the morning, they knock off their sales call, and they come back, and then they have to come back into the office and learn English. Why not kill two birds with one stone? So I decided, well, I'll go back to university and then move back to Japan, and maybe book out entire cars, sell them to Japanese businessmen, even on the spot. And guys, you can, on your way back, you can knock off your English language on the way. Brilliant. Just genius.
Genius.
Yeah, it was insane how great it was. So
I'm not gonna like that.
so I mean, what's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with it until it's
You tried like my sales tickets.
right. As it turned out, looking back years later, I kind of shook my head and go, man, you knew nothing about Japanese business culture. You knew nothing about your audience at that time. That would have been a waste. The reason why I didn't get back actually was I was lured into Ontario to join the Suzuki GM company, and I thought, well, I can always go back later and do this if it was a real thing. One thing led to another and ended up not doing it. And then finally really understanding my audience going, wow, I would have lost a ton of money trying to do that because it just simply would not have been a feasible proposal.
And then it was interesting, Suzuki going back. So again, Japanese culture, was it something that you planned? Was it something that you were telling the universe and then it was throwing this at you, continuing with the culture? Did you make a search for, I'm going to work at somewhere where there is some Japanese brands or culture? Yeah, you were intentional with it.
Yeah, when I received, we're jumping ahead a bit, but just to give the context, when I received my Saké Samurai title in Kyoto in 2018, there was a press conference afterwards, and there was a lot of press. There was a lot of people there, and I was asked to give a talk as to what sake means to me. And I opened up my speech. It was in Japanese, but I opened up my speech with my favorite quote, which is by Mark Twain, and that is, the two most significant days in a person's life are, first, the day that you're born, and second is the day that you understand why. And I was one of those really lucky guys, not knowing it when I heard that Queen song, not knowing it even when I was studying Japanese in university. But by the time I came back from Japan on the scholarship, I was determined on building a bridge between Japan and Canada. I had no idea what that looked like. I had no idea where that was going to take me to, but that remained my compass. So it was really from that point forward, it was always run through that filter. Is this contributing to that? And then through that, I began to narrow it down. So fast forward, Suzuki was awesome, but I still felt like a year was too short in Japan, like during my university time, and it felt unfinished. So I packed up my family. I now had 2.5 kids, was married, and we moved to Tokyo. About a month after I was born, my youngest was born in Tokyo, and I started working in a very small trading company, import company that focused on Canadian high quality products like maple syrup and ice wine and things like that. And I learned a lot about guerrilla marketing. I learned a lot about how the systems in Japan worked, and notably about how the alcohol system worked. And because I was in terms of just the systems, well, overall, it was just the other thing was, yeah, I just recall, the other thing was, when I was at Suzuki, because it was a transplant operation, because all of my seniors around me who were training me, they were anxious to get back home. It was in their interest to ramp me up as soon as possible. I was their ticket home. So it was a very aggressive learning cycle. I remember looking over design drawings at 9 o'clock at night as they're trying to teach me. I am not a design engineer by education, but they're walking me through it. I needed to understand how radius actually looked, because I'm buying parts. I was actually how old was I? Like 26 years old, and I was buying about $500 million in product.
Wow.
What I learned through that, though, was the Japanese way, particularly in the automotive, was very significantly different to the North American way of doing business. We and actually, when I was when I was lured to Ontario, Toyota and Honda also had facilities, and they were also courting me. There weren't a lot of Japanese-speaking Canadians at that time, and so I looked at those too, and yes, very prestigious. But if I join Toyota, I'm going to learn the Toyota way. If I join Honda, it'll be the Honda way. And of course, because these are very mature, successful entities, they do have their own, specific culture. And I thought that's just a little too myopic. At the same time, there's an America or North American and a Japanese company that have 50-50 stake. I thought there is no better way to understand both business cultures. There's no better way than seeing them clash every day, and man, did they clash. And so it was like I had subtitles all day long, like people going, "This is how business is done in North America. This is how it's done in Japan." But all my surroundings were Japanese people. My supervisors, my suppliers were Japanese. So I learned about the Japanese way, which is particularly in that environment. They made it very clear to me. If I went to the North American side and I heard it from the GM blood, or if I would go to head office or what have you, it is basically these suppliers are good as long as they are good for you. And if you bleed them as you can, as much as you can bleed them, then that will serve you well. And then you go on to the next. The Japanese way was, they told me from day one, yeah, we're called a car manufacturer, but we just assemble parts. And the supplier is absolutely critical to us. They are your partners. They are your lifeline. So when issues happen, it is a collaborative approach as opposed to finger pointing. I need you, you need me. How do we work on this together? And that would be whether it be through formal cost reduction programs, whether it be through quality issues or what have you. The assumption is not that you did bad. The assumption is something happened out there with your perspective and our perspective. Let's throw resources at and figure out what happened so that it doesn't repeat again, but also so that we can move forward. So those lessons still carry me through today because, of course, I'm engaging with my suppliers and that collaborative work. I think my suppliers have just a comfort level because it's not just the language, but it just just the way how our conversations move forward is something that they're familiar with because I'm familiar with it. When I thought about it, really, my professional career has only been with Japanese, in a Japanese environment, whether it be my own created one later on or in the earlier days.
Very nice. That's amazing, my friend. I love Japanese culture. What are your biggest takeaways from Japanese culture? Like, if you can say the 3 or 5 things that the Japanese culture has given you and that you can share. I just been there once, like on a trip, and I have my Japanese 101, but I'd like to hear yours first.
Okay. Let me see. I think the first one is the true value of relationships. I had when I was dealing with non-Japanese, like whether it be European or American producers, quite often we will get into contracts. With Japan, I've never had a contract with anybody. I will lose sleep at night with those partners who I've signed contracts with, and I have never lost sleep over a Japanese relationship. Once you get to, and it actually dawned on me when I was in university, just with some of the vulnerable interactions that I'm having with these newfound friends. And here I am, the white guy in the room, but I could tell by the resonance of the sharing and the depth that we went to, in amongst the drinking and everything. But the resonance, I just felt it as a very uniquely special trust that is being built here. One that it takes a tremendous amount of time to build. And once it is built, it becomes almost unshakable. And that's certainly in North America with my friends and a number of suppliers, that is also reflected, and because of that, they remain in my world. Because of also just my interest and passion, I tend to turn my focus to Japan, and it is that much more prevalent, I find, or that much easier to find that. And once we agree to get married, there's no looking back. Again, if something happens, that's beyond both of our control, It is that collaborative, how do we fix it? It's just a natural move. There is zero consideration that, oh, it's their fault. Just
They don't
doesn't
look
become
for that. They look what part of the process must be fixed instead of
Mhm.
looking for blame.
Correct. And that leads to the next thing, is what we, what is now even in English referred to as Kaizen, this concept of constantly improving, to not taking the status quo as a given. That was just inbred in me when I was in the automotive. Suzuki was more of a Toyota way. So there's a lot of terminology that we would use that were classic Toyota manufacturing words, practices, philosophies. And for example, I worked in the small town, Ontario. There's about 3,000 employees. And there was a suggestion program. And every month, every employee was, even if you're a unionized line guy, you were compelled to submit 5 suggestions throughout the course of the month. You add that up, that's 15,000, right? 15,000 suggestions a month that are being submitted into a system. The concept is, though, if you look at a production line, these suggestions are, you know what? I figured out it takes me 6 steps to walk from the line to my toolbox. If I move my toolbox 1 foot closer, because I'm making these 6 steps a day and I condense it down, or 6 steps for every move to the toolbox to pick up something, I'm actually making, and I'm just riffing it now, but I'm making 10,000 steps every couple of months. I'm making 50,000 steps a year. I get paid X dollars per hour. That means per second. 1 step equals X seconds. Wow, I have just saved. In terms of efficiency, I have just saved the company $457. If you took a aerial snapshot as to what the plant looked like last month, and by implementing just a number of these changes, you would actually see this constantly shifting picture as to where things just become more and more and more efficient. Once that gets into your blood, you just do it all the time. And so that was a tremendous takeaway as well. There is never any nothing needs to remain static, but also at the same time, it's actually these small, how do you save 1 step that leads to larger, more efficient journeys and larger, whatever the goal is, whether it be savings, whether it be efficiency, whatever, it leads to those larger movements.
And you apply that to your life, probably unconsciously to everything, not just business.
I can't go downstairs without carrying something with me, and cannot come back upstairs in my house without carrying something with me.
Nice. How have you been? We met throughout EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. Back in 2013, we were in the entrepreneurial master's programs at MIT. Graduated in 2015. Have you made that connection, not only through business or through life, but also throughout EO, connection as an ambassador between Canada and Japan? How has your experience been meeting and sharing experiences with other entrepreneurs in Japan? Because, and just adding a little bit, Bert, there is, in Japan, there is this, they have a strong respect for tradition, and for what the father built, the grandfather, and, all the lineage. And if you fail, that fail is going to carry on. Sometimes, probably, I'm not sure, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but that failure can carry on throughout generations. Entrepreneurship is a lot about failing. How do those two marry, if they do?
Right. So to answer your first question, or the initial part about interacting with the EO Japan, yes, I've enjoyed a really beautifully long meaning from probably about 2010. I joined EO in 2008. I was in my early 20s. Okay, I wasn't.
Very young.
Thank you for just for honoring that. Yeah, thank you. I joined in 2008. It occurred to me early on that for if I'm going to be in this organization, and I was very blessed to be in an amazing forum I stayed with just up until last year, and just because of my life evolution, I bowed out with a lot of sadness. But anyway, it was a beautifully rich journey. That coupled with the realization that, if I'm an EO here, when the calendar is released, the onus is on me just to say yes to everything. A really interesting thing that I discovered early on was the really shiny names. The really, sexy headline, like this speaker, and I'm not going to say any names, but some really prominent global people. I would go to their talks or hear their talks or what have you, and it sometimes it would be pretty generic. It would be pretty vanilla. And then I would end up going to this one event just because I said yes to all of them. And I would go into this event, a guy I had no idea about. I got to the point where I just stopped reading what the content was, because I realized and this is just my reflection, but the less I know about them, probably the greater takeaways I'm going to have. And so that just fueled this practice of just saying yes. And my success rate, because of that, my batting average was pretty close to perfect. And then if it was just a headline guy, I would go, I'm just going to see a celebrity. That's cool. And I would just manage my expectations before that. But with the other guys, I have no expectations, and I would just walk away with gold. So that started at the local chapter level. Pretty soon, I'm starting to sign up for universities, international universities, and it was first one, I think it was Amsterdam, where there was a Japanese contingent there. And because I speak the language, and we developed a connection. Those connections still remain today, very, very beautifully. And as we would meet up at different universities, Mexico, so on and so forth, and as well as when I would go to Japan, we would just get together. I would just randomly call a handful of them, and we would get together for a night out. It was, I think it was maybe in Mexico at the anniversary, the Mexico, when was that? 2012, maybe 11, 12?
Around there, probably, yeah.
Yeah. So during that time, there was a Japanese group there, and I said, "How are you enjoying it?" And they said, "Well, it's awesome to see you, and it's awesome to be in Mexico, but we don't understand anything that's going on." And I said, well, wow, revelation. Opened that up a bit, went back. The president of the chapter at the time invited me to his post forum, which was basically a group of past presidents, and in a structured setting, I basically interviewed them, saying, "What are your pain points here, and how can this best be delivered?" Ultimately, in a word, it came down to translation. So I brought that back to, I knew a few people at the global level, and mentioned it to one gentleman, and he said, "Yeah, it's been actually, it's been a talking point for us." And I said, "This is a very real thing." And as you are going into other countries, it's South China and what have you is being developed, or there were different areas. I go, we are going to end up with a very vanilla group of people that only speak English, which misses the opportunity for us to dive deeper into a broader cultural context, not just expats and what have you, but this opportunity exists here. But if we don't make it inviting for them, and so to fast forward today, to see the translation as being just a given, whether it be the podcast and in different environments, it just warms my heart to know that we become so inclusive of all these different cultures. And I know it's got to be, and certainly from your level, my friend, you see it on a daily basis. So
Yeah, I do, and it's still a challenge for us. And we're all expecting next year to have the AirPods that translate simultaneously, hopefully. But those, I mean, it's really costly for an event like Global Leadership Conference. I mean, it's tremendously high. but you're right, and you put it very well in how, the effect of having people who only speak both languages instead of having that difference in culture, in having someone who does not speak English and being able to translate. That's a really good takeaway, and it's amazing how well Japan has embraced the whole organization, so much that they became their own region now. So now, of course, you probably know already that we used to be 10 regions, and this year we added the only second region to have its own country, which the first was Canada, and now it's Japan. So you're doing a tremendous job bridging there, my friend. You're a great culture ambassador. And thank you for that heads up, because it's so true. We do have to work better on translation and in being able to, to make it a given and to be swift in that way.
Yeah, I think again, if you look at it in the context I mean, mine was just, I was just only validating what was already, what was already being considered at the global level, or just adding one more in, but on a more personal level, because it took back some of these, direct thoughts to them. But I think that, thinking about that original context and where it is now, there just must be immense gratitude about the effort. And whereas, before, where it was exclusionary, just that, wow, there are these, practically speaking, yes, we still maybe have that next level, or perhaps technology it will help us get there next year. But I think that the effort is well displayed, and to
And,
celebrate.
we're having the GLC in Kyoto in 2027.
Thank you for that heads up.
Yeah, I'll see you there.
Yeah, I'd love to do a sake segment there for everybody.
You probably know Jules San. He's gonna be leading. He's from Kyoto. I don't recall his last name right now. Tirikoto, something like that. I'll send you the details so that we can coordinate. He's gonna be leading the GLC, and this is a global leadership conference of EO, where 10% of the members who lead all the chapters get theirs. For context, I know you already know it, but I think it's gonna be amazing, and I'll put you in context so we can do something. I went to your master class that you gave at MIT, and it was great. So I already have my white belt. I still have to continue practicing to be able to get a little more into sake. Um, but people, when they think about sake, they don't have a lot of experience about it. You shared at one point that it was more similar to how beer is done than to how wine is done. People ask questions like, is it cold? Is it hot? How do you determine a good sake? And I guess, it's hard to just say it in a brief couple of minutes or an elevator pitch, but tell me how you fell in love with sake, and how that journey has become to be able to get such a high recognition from a culture that takes this so seriously, and that probably, there I would say there's only one sake master outside of Japan. But I know it is a tremendous recognition, and a great honor to be it. How has that experience been for you?
To go back, if I could break that down into two, or two segments. The first part about, how did I get so involved? What did I find so attractive about sake? Is, you asked me to keep it really short. I can. It's just so easy. It's
Yeah.
so easy. There are no rules to sake. I get asked, like, for example, tonight at a very prominent steakhouse here in town, I'm doing a sake pairing dinner, and I use that word as a pairing, as a just for ease. It's a lazy word for me. But the fact is when somebody says, "I want you to do a sake pairing," I said, I don't do pairings." And they say, "Why not?" And I said, "Think about it. What is a pairing? What a pairing means is we have this entity called wine, for example." And because it is so finicky, because it is so particular, and there's so many rules around it, you can actually screw it up if you do it wrong. So what we're going to do is we're either going to give you a manual, or you take a course, or if you're in a higher end restaurant, we'll actually provide an expert to come to your table to walk you through this very, very complex thing. for me, from the start, that is problematic as a consumer product. Like, why does it need to be that complicated? But it needs to be for wine because it is a very small square that you can do certain things with. And if you've got a round peg or a square peg and you're trying to get it into a round hole, it ain't going to work. And if you force it, it's just going to create a problem. So, on the other hand, sake, wine is made from grapes. Wine thereby brings with it, inherently, it has some baggage with it. There are histamines. If it's red, there are sulfites. So there's allergy issues. But I find the biggest challenge with wine is the acidity. For me, just personally, to sit down and have a glass of wine, sometimes in the summertime, I'm just looking for a nice crisp glass of white. Oftentimes, after one glass of white wine, my brain is automatically shutting down. The server comes by, do you want another? I go, no, just a water or a beer. I want to wash this away, is where subconsciously I'm going to. Why this acidity has been shouting at me. I'm supposed to be relaxing, just imbibing, just having, the wine should not be the centerpiece. I liken it to a bully with a baseball bat at a 10-year-old birthday party. Like, you don't need to walk in shouting. Just bring in your present, put it on the table, and just let people graze and enjoy it. So on the other hand, sake in turn it's made from rice. It's made from a very complex, it's called multiple parallel fermentation. We won't go into it, but basically when it's being fermented, a couple of things are going on in the tank at the same time, which then creates a beverage that has, yes, alcohol, but there are also other enzymes that are produced in that unique process that are very conducive to the human body. If you buy Asian face masks now, or face masks, but if they're from Asia, chances are they're made from sake sediment. The human body likes sake. The courtesans have been having we're having baths in sake for centuries. The human body's happy with it, and when it goes inside your body, if you're drinking it, I'm putting aside the obviously it's alcohol. Obviously, the liver, it is a toxin to the liver, but let's put that aside. That's the same for any alcohol. Apart from that, though, I'm not aware of any allergic reactions to it. There are no sulfites. It's not made from grapes. There are no histamines. It's not made from grapes. There is only 25% the amount of acidity, meaning it doesn't shout at you. Sake is constantly winning the Best Supporting Actor award. It just shows up. It says, what are you doing tonight? Well, I'm having, and you could rhyme off all these very difficult, wine pairing challenges. I'm having asparagus and caviar and oysters and brie or blue cheese. Wine and go, oh, great. For that plate that you have, I have 5 different wines for you. I don't want 5 wines with one plate. Sake just goes, I don't care what you have, because sake is based on umami. It has like 25 times the amount of umami. And umami is just that yumminess, deliciousness. Umami rides above everything else. The cool thing about umami is, though, it's an amplifier. So if you have a good dish, if you're a cook at home and you've got the signature dish you like to make, and it's really good, if you paired it with sake, it will taste excellent. That's just human biology. And it's based on the glutamates. As you start to, you just think about yummy foods, you start to salivate. That is your umami receptors kicking in, anticipating the glutamates, and you're basically getting teed up for an appetizing venture. That is just your body getting ready. Sake encourages that. That is what it does, which means then you always want to have another glass. And why? First of all, it's not shouting at you, but you're just enjoying it because your body's going, oh yeah, I think I want more. I think, without thinking about it.
And I am here, what, might be like Eastern time would be like 12. I would be having a sake right now. Just made it so delicious description of it. And for people mindful of the acidity in the body also, right? Like the pH, you don't want it to be acidic. And this would be a great thing also, a great supporter of sake. Wow. How has sake grown in Canada, for example, from where you started importing it to where it is now? How big has the industry become there?
it still remains niche. However, in terms of just the last 2 months, in for example, in the province that I'm in, hard data showed that in July, of the major categories for which sake is actually, from a volume standpoint, could be placed in that sector, as a major category. And this is in amongst the top trending ones would be like Argentinian red wine, Australian white wine, Australian red wine, some Europeans in there, trending at about anywhere between 20 to maybe, 15 to 20% increase year on year. Sake in July was 28% increase. It was the top trending category. And then fast forward to the next month in August, the order remained the same, but sake exceeded 40% increase. Sake from Japan. So it's it's really becoming a slowly, but and certainly the graph was, has been extremely extended. We're talking 30 years. So, but recently it has really captured the imagination of people in the U.S. I believe it's now over, and I could stand corrected, but just to give a feeling, in the U.S. there's, I believe, over 50 brewers. In one just opened in Germany. There's one in New Zealand. There's a couple in France. I think there's 3 in the UK. They are just popping up everywhere. And there's a handful of stories of significant wine people that have literally packed up, notably from France, that have literally packed up shop and moved to Japan to produce sake.
Wow. So you said Japanese sake. Is there any other type? Do they make sake in other places?
So in order, in other places, yeah. So there's in the U.S. over 50. There's a couple in England, a couple in France, Germany, in those places as well. Sake is being produced, or what they term as sake. Some places will be adding in fruit flavors and things like that. In the classic sense of the word, that is no longer, because there are things added to it. It's not so. But in my opinion, and this is not, I don't, I'm not a stubborn old man. I basically celebrate. You know what? People ask me, well, what are your thoughts on these, iterations of sake? And I said, hey, let's look at it right now. You're asking me a question about sake. 30 years ago, nobody was asking me a question. This is awesome. And people will decide what they like and what they don't like. So it's a very democratic beverage. So the numbers will speak for itself. But somebody locally, somebody in Boston, they're taking the plunge, they're taking the risk, and they want to get the word sake out there for whatever reason through their, they're making it locally. I think that's just an awesome concept.
How was the journey to become a sake samurai? Take us a little bit throughout that journey. How did it look like? How long it took? What types of learnings you went through?
Right. The fact is it's actually the title Saké Samurai is a title. And so to give, I'm not saying it's necessarily the same. I'm not implying at all that it's the same level, but the orchestration is the same in that in England they have knighthood. And for example, Paul McCartney didn't call Liz and say, "Hey, Queenie, I sold a lot of records. I think I'm due for a sword. What do you say? What more do I need to do?" It happens the other way. It is a recognition from the other side to say, you have done a number of significant things to whether it be promote our country, promote our culture, promote, in that case of music and so on and so forth. And therefore we want to recognize that. So I got a call in 2018 saying you've been nominated for this title. There's really rough numbers, but to give some perspective, there's around 24 non-Japanese in the world that have been recognized with the title. And at that time, in 2018, that was the first time somebody in Canada had been recognized. When I was contacted, they said, "You've been nominated, send us your profile." So I submitted about 4 pages on my background. And at the very bottom of it, I said, "Oh, and by the way, I import and sell sake." Because I was fully cognizant. I'm very well aware as to what the Saké Samurai is, and it is not a sales award. On the other hand, they're very practical about it, and they're going, if you're actually, if you're in the business, I hope you're good at it. I hope you're making money at it. Like, yeah, this is not why we recognize. So a lot of the things I had in there were things like I started this Japanese radio program. I was involved in the launching stages of the sister city relationship between Morioka and Victoria, and it went on for 4 pages about the different things that I did in the journey about all of these. Now, what does that got to do with sake? What sake is? I would argue it is the most significant cultural icon in Japan. And so when it gets to that, when you view it from that level, then it really is a icon of the country. And so as a Canadian, just the various things that I did to constantly be bridging Japan and Canada speaks very much to the essence of that. And at the same time, of course, as I, regarding, the sake itself, even though it wasn't to do with sales, inaugurating the Sake Fest in Vancouver. And then most recently, just the type of, how should I say, my approach to sake, I put it in quotes, education. And because I'm coming at it now from a different angle, and a little bit counter too. It's ruffling some feathers, but that also is where I find some joy. So it's a new journey, and I've been I've lectured around Japan on that as well at universities and what have you. Basically saying, can we please change the conversation around sake here?
Wow, that's amazing. When was it that you got that title?
It was 2018.
2018. Nice. Where do you see it, moving forward? How do you see for the next 5 or 10 years your involvement in the industry and getting all these great results that have come throughout 30 years of working for it? How do you see the future coming in for you?
Right. From the I see the presence of sake in Japanese restaurants, as I have seen it from the beginning, as being a given. We do this before. This is a translation from a Japanese phrase, but we do this before breakfast. So the mission is to find ourselves in more and more Western settings. In Italian restaurants, in pubs, in hotel restaurants, things like that. And there is a really beautiful momentum building behind that as more and more people are discovering it, particularly younger people. When you think about it, typically a 20-year-old or what have you, they've had these, what we call RTDs, ready to drinks, like a
seltzer or something like that.
Exactly, like a claw or something like that. And that's what they're drinking through their first couple of years of drinking. And then they get to a point, maybe 20, 22, maybe they're out of university and they're becoming, members of society. And they're looking for, well, now I need to graduate. Now I need to be an adult. And so then somebody gives them a glass of red wine. And I liken that to smoking a cigarette. And you know what? If you want to be an adult, this is back decades ago, but if you wanted to smoke, you have to power through the first bit because there is sunshine on the other side. And if you could get through that hacking, that grossness of the first bit, then you can then smoke easily, and you are now an adult. Red wine was I think is a similar thing. If you gave people are not inclined as a 22-year-old to naturally lean towards a red wine. Again, it's got the tannins in it. It's, sour or however they describe it. The younger generation is now discovering sake and going, this is so smooth. So it actually is now becoming the gateway. And why you should celebrate it, because it's helping along the graduation process. And rather than turning people off one, as they go into sake, because the fact is that the sake is about the same alcohol level as wine. You drink sake in a wine glass. As I said, it's just so easy. You don't need to think about it. Temperature range can be anywhere from 5 degrees to 40 degrees. You just don't need to think about it. And whatever bottle of sake you have in your fridge will go with whatever you're eating tomorrow night. Could be chicken or it could be steak. I won't bore you with the technical aspects of it, but scientifically it works. And so I think that ease as well is just, I think it's a curious young adult is finding, and it still is early. Like there's still, it still remains niche, but like a contagious niche, it is expanding at a rapid pace. And I gave you the numbers as to where sake is moving to. And so the sky is the limit, and our penetration into the mainstream has only just begun. And we've really now figured out we knew what the landscape was like, but how to navigate it and how to communicate that. And that again is where this plea from me to the industry to say, we need to start reframing how we're talking about this. Nobody cares.
It's super interesting. I mean, Gen Z is drinking 50% less alcohol than other generations. So you're seeing this great decline, mostly in the States, but other countries probably are following. And seeing this like a backup drink that that is healthier, that it doesn't have these things that can have allergy issues, and still you still can have fun and pair it with a lot of great food, which is a tremendous upside as well. It is interesting to see how it can be a catching option for all of them. That is fantastic. That is a great takeaway. And I love the fact of how you deliberately put, a high value in the cultural aspect. You must have been Japanese in a past life for sure, for it to have pulled you so much since the beginning from a Queen song. But it's amazing, how you decided, no, I'm not gonna continue the corporate world, which probably would be president of Chevrolet by now. But you said, I'm gonna continue with what I'm passionate with, and with this bridging of cultures. You've gone to Japan over 100 times, or crossed the Pacific over 100 times. That is amazing, just that fact right there. And how you even, evolve your business from Blue Note wines to Blue Note sake. And I recall you told me that you exited your business, or you said, this is not something that I want to continue working. I want to focus full immersion on sake, and not a lot of people do that. So I love that. I love that marriage as well. Tell me a concert you're looking forward to going to.
Actually, can I share with you the one that definitely the highlight of it was certainly the highlight of the festival, but one of the highlights of the last few years. And it was at Coachella, which is a gong show. But it was in the middle of the afternoon in a side tent, a group that I discovered on Tiny Desk concerts. Are you familiar with Tiny Desk?
Yeah.
Except in this case, it was Latino Tiny Desk, and the group is out of Argentina, a hip hop group called Catriel and Paco Amoroso, and I became infatuated with them. So here I am standing in this tent. I was the only gringo in the entire tent, but I know all the songs. I'm singing along, but I do not know any of the meanings. I recently saw a video with some translation on it, and I go, "Oh, geez, this is actually But anyway, they have a tremendous stage presence, and love the music. So the Catriel and Paco Amoroso was
I'm gonna
amazing.
look for it. I have
Mm.
not heard about them, and I do love Argentinian music, and I'll share one Colombian that I heard in Tiny Desk as well. I forgot the name of it, but I'll send it right now, and I'll put it here also for you guys to hear it as well, and not just be kept between me and Patrick. Um, you know, we're over an hour now, and that's great. That's fine. I mean, great conversations happen like that. You know, just go over time, and it's fantastic. I love your passion for the Japanese culture. One of my takeaways, and this probably sounds pretty kindergarten for anyone who has visited Japan. It was my first time. I went to Kyoto, and when I was going through the temples, the person who was guiding us, and they talked about wabi sabi, about the imperfection around it, and how when they break a vase, they fix it with gold, and it honors the vase, but also the imperfection that happened around it. And they would tell me about, you know, you see the whole garden is perfect except that one right there in the middle is growing two trees at once, and that's the wabi sabi of this garden. I was like, oh my god, I really enjoyed it. And, you know, perfection is something that brings a lot of anxiety. A lot of people think that they can have perfection. There's this saying that progress trumps perfection, especially for entrepreneurs. But I think it is such a great small takeaway that you can take from such a wonderful culture that I really, you know, felt like I was learning something deep when I went to that trip, and I can't wait to go back. My wife lived in Osaka for a year, so she used to speak better Japanese than she does now. So you know she has this love for the culture as well, and I can't wait to go over there again and visit. Patrick, if you could, you know, share with us something that has been a learning for your girls, something that you would like them to remember from you in this lifetime. If there is a saying or something that you repeat to them, or something that you would like them to say, oh, you know, my dad always used to say this, or this is a great learning that I had from my dad, or this is something that we used to do. What would that be?
I think it actually, I'm going to actually segue right from your reference to wabi sabi. You know, I see life as constantly being a straight road until we hit that T, until we hit that not the fork, but the T in the road. And you have the ability to turn either right or left. You can either turn into the light or into the dark. I think the wabi sabi concept speaks to perspective and the choice of perspective that you have. You can look at something and say, "Oh, this is broken," or "This is not, you know, this is imperfect." Or you could take a view from the other side, lean into the light, lean into the positive, and go, which is the wabi sabi perspective, which is, look at the beauty in that imperfection. I mean, there is tremendous consistency, but right here is where in this bowl where there's this little dimple and what have you, and there's something even more extraordinary. I think it's actually more authentic. It's more real when it looks like that. So the to summarize that to my girls they've listened to since they were born was, yeah, there is a choice. You have a choice in terms of every decision that you make, and it begins with a yes or a no.
I love that. Thank you very much, my friend.
It's so
Uh,
good to see you.
So good to see you too. Thank you for sharing your journey with us from Tokyo, trading floors to Canadian dining tables, and from a single bottle to millions of bottles, and to making a tremendous dent in the world of sake. Your story is a reminder that entrepreneurship isn't just about building a business, it's also about building bridges between cultures, between people, and between passions. Your story is a reminder that entrepreneurship, you know, it's relevant to have the idea of what you want to do throughout your lifetime, and not just, you know, how do I make a big business doing this, which I'm probably good at. For our listeners, the next time you raise a glass of sake, think of the generations of brewers, the dedication of people like Patrick, and the possibility that every sip holds a story, and all the great positive things that come out through sake. I'm gonna send you a picture of the next sake I have, which is gonna be very soon. So, my dear Patrick Ellis, Saké Samurai, it's been an honor. Oh my God, I love that, man. Yes, and it's been an honor having you on the podcast. Thank you so much for participating with us. And I'm sure I'm going to invite you once again because this conversation just flew by and I still have so many questions and great interest for what you do, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's so good to see you.
Thank you to all the listeners, my friends. Remember, we want to share knowledge, we want to share experience. If this story resonated with you, please share it with that friend or that person you thought of. It might hit them well and they might get some inspiration throughout this tremendous experience of this great entrepreneur. Please remember to go and put 5 or 4 or which number of stars you think the quality of this show is, because that'll help us to get to even to a bigger audience who can then continue to see us and continue to share this purpose of learning throughout the experience of others. With that said, until the next time, thank you very much.